I'll get back into my studio before too long, but it's just so nice outside. It's really nice. So I'm just trying to take advantage of it. It's, I guess you would say, dusk. It's about it's about six in the evening here out on the deck. Really nice. There's the van, and I'm planning on going camping with my van next week, and I'll take you with me. And you'll see what happens. It's my first camping trip in the van, and we'll see how that goes. All right, I want to talk about Charlie Kirk. Very sad. The latest news that I have is probably what you've seen. They have arrested a young man and charged him with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Here's my take on this. As far as this suspect goes, this is the bottom line. They have a man. They say that he is the man, the young man that shot Charlie Kirk. I have ceased being gullible as I once was. I am a cynic. I am a skeptic. When I hear any information coming from the American government, regardless of who is in power at the time, whether it's a Republican or a Democratic administration, I just don't believe what I hear at face value. I just don't accept it. Now, it could be true. It could be a simple case of one lone nutter who was upset with Charlie Kirk, just a mentally unstable young man that wanted Charlie Kirk to die, and he carried out this threat successfully, and that's the end of the story. That could be it. But I'm not going to just swallow hook, line, and sinker the story that's coming from Kash Patel. I think Kash Patel is probably a good guy. Dan Bongino, I believe, is a good guy. I don't believe that they would mislead us. I don't believe that Donald Trump would mislead us on this. But I don't know. I can't say for sure. And I'm not going to accept at face value whatever they say. There is still the possibility out there that there was another component. There is still the possibility out there that there are other players that we don't know about. Certainly, Charlie Kirk had his enemies far and wide. We know this. We know that the woke gang hated Charlie Kirk, and this young man was probably a part of that identity or that philosophy of wokeness, because based on the things I've heard that he has said, he found Charlie Kirk reprehensible and repugnant. And instead of formulating his own argument, which would theoretically be superior, instead of doing that, he took the violent way and just ended Charlie's life. It's very sad. Now, I've heard all sorts of theories. I've heard everything from the deep state, the CIA, all the usual suspects. I've heard Israel, the Mossad. I can't say that any of those things aren't true because I don't know. I got soured on all of this with Lee Harvey Oswald, folks. You know, we were told when Kennedy was killed that it was a single assassin, Lee Harvey Oswald. Who doesn't know by this point that was utter nonsense. It was all a lie. The Dulles Commission, Alan Dulles, a sworn enemy of John Kennedy, who was the head of that commission, which included former President Gerald Ford, who lied to the American people about that whole event and knew better. I could go in a deep dive on that. But we have been lied to so much. We were lied about the Kennedy assassination. We were lied to about Vietnam. We were lied to about Iraq. We were lied to about Watergate. We were lied to over and over and over again about these seminal moments in American history where we were given a particular government-backed narrative that turned out to be nothing but a big bag of lies. And so now we are supposed to just accept that this was a lone gunman who took down Charlie Kirk. Again, it may be true. I'm just not gullible. I'm just not gullible. Maybe this will be all there is to it. Maybe this will come out, but you know, you've just got to be a skeptic anymore, folks. You just can't believe what you're told anymore. We are swimming in lies, and it's just that simple. So I would encourage you to be a skeptic, to be cynical somewhat when you hear anything coming from the government, because they have a history of lying to us regardless of administration. I'd like to believe them, but I can't. So we will see. We may never know. We may never know the truth. We may be looking at the truth right now, but we don't know. We weren't there. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So that's my stance on that. But this is what I really wanted to talk about. The title of the video, Charlie Kirk brought a knife to a gunfight, and that is exactly the truth. That's a fact. Now, what do I mean by that? Charlie Kirk had founded this organization, Turning Point. Turning Point, was that it? Turning Point USA or Turning Point? I believe it was Turning Point. Charlie Kirk was by all estimates, very knowledgeable young man. He was not a college graduate. I think he reveled in that, but he went to college campuses all over for debate and argument and dialogue. He opened himself up courageously to all detractors. He invited those who disagreed with him to come before him to a mic. He gave them a microphone and let them talk. Let them say why they felt he was wrong. And he engaged with them in dialogue. That is commendable. That's the way to do it. I applaud that approach. It is wonderful. I love that exchange of ideas. I like to consider myself fairly open. I will present my arguments on a given topic, and I invite detractors and dissenters and people who will say, you're wrong about this, and here's why. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the way it should be. As I've said, I've got people I have befriended on my own channel who don't always agree with me, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. I'm not intimidated by that. I'm not a tyrant here, and you've got to listen to my ideas, and my ideas are the right ideas, and there can be no other ideas. I don't think that way. I'm not wired like that. I like dialogue and debate and argument. A well thought out, well presented argument is a beautiful thing, and I enjoy that sort of exchange. There's nothing wrong with that. Charlie Kirk was, from all I can tell, a man of means. I don't know how wealthy he was. I have no idea. But I am quite sure that his organization took in a considerable sum of money. And that's great. That's wonderful. I'm sure he had a lot of benefactors, a lot of donations. He had access through Turning Point to a great deal of cash, I would assume. He had great sway with President Trump. He had influence with the Republican Party and with MAGA. And he wasn't hurting for money from all I can tell. By the way, I heard that Tucker Carlson donated $1 million to his widow, and that's wonderful. I applaud that. There's been a fund set up for her and the children, Charlie's children. I hope they make bank off of it. I wish them barrels full of money. They deserve it, and good for them. And I would encourage you to contribute if you are able. I think that would be a wonderful thing. I make a point of the fact that Charlie had access to a considerable amount of funds, in my opinion. That's what I'm looking in from the outside, but that's how it appears to me. And the reason I'm making a point of this is because, folks, there is a lesson to be learned from what happened to Charlie Kirk 2 days ago, and the lesson is simply this. When you are making appearances as a political figure, whether you are a politician or you do political type rallies and events, particularly those that attract thousands of people, as Charlie did, I saw the scene, as did you, I'm sure, on the campus of Utah Valley University. It appeared to me there were thousands of attendees there. Wonderful. But when you are attracting large crowds like that, you have to budget from all of your resources, all of the money that you take in. You have to allocate a considerable part of those funds for security. You got me? It's as simple as that. You cannot, when you get to the status of a Charlie Kirk and you're attracting, again, thousands of people, you can't just rely on the local police force or the campus police department. I don't know what kind of security Charlie had, but it certainly wasn't enough. That campus, I've seen photos of it and a map of it. That campus, all around that event, had a lot of buildings around it. What do all buildings have? They all have roofs. So there were multiple places from which a potential assassin could set up shop, if you will, and do what assassins do. This is a problem. It was a problem for President Trump in Pennsylvania earlier, or rather last year, as you know, and he had Secret Service protection, who of course bungled the event and a subsequent place where Trump was, there was another attempt on his life. You don't hear any more about this. Isn't that strange? But Trump had Secret Service protection, as inadequate as it was, where he was being guarded by women the top of their heads came up to his chest. It was ridiculous. It was an absolute bungling of Trump's security detail, and that was with the Secret Service. Now, Charlie Kirk didn't have Secret Service protection, but he could have allocated enough money from the funds that he made to purchase private security detail that would give him a fighting chance, if you will, a professional security detail. I say this as a layman, but it's just common sense. If you hire a professional security detail, a well-stocked security detail with well-trained individuals, perhaps some former retired military personnel, if you had enough of those people in the security detail milling about the area and checking it out before the event was held, this may have well been prevented, which means that would have been money well spent, because he might be alive today. I can't say that for sure, but he would have had a far better chance of being alive today had he had adequate security. And there is a lesson to be learned here from future political figures, those who are running for office and those who are just lay people, albeit political figures, who are going out in public places and addressing throngs of people with regard to political issues. You simply cannot go out there in this woke culture, folks, and allow yourself to be a sitting duck, which is exactly what Charlie Kirk literally was. He was sitting in a chair under a tent, surrounded by thousands of people, attempting dialogue with a detractor when he lost his life, because there was no security, obviously, that had a line of sight for where that shot came from. And I'm talking about a heavy security presence. I'm talking about dozens of people if need be, whatever is required. Future political leaders have got to learn a lesson from this event, and that lesson is you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. It's as simple as that. Charlie Kirk's life may have been saved. I don't know this, but I'm telling you, he would have had a far better chance, and his life may have been saved if he had had adequate security personnel around him. And this could have happened. If you've got the money for it, this could have happened. And I dare say he had money that he could have budgeted for this. The bottom line is today, were Charlie still with us and he had survived, I guarantee you he would be thinking on these terms. And he would be saying right now, from this point forward, we're going to have to portion our budget, our turning point budget. A certain large percentage of our budget is going to have to be for security, because your message ain't going to get out if you ain't there to give it. The silver lining to this, of course, is that this gunman who took Charlie's life basically turned Charlie into a martyr. And ultimately, it's going to be a boneheaded move because the message is greater than the man. Look what happened to Jesus Christ. They took the Savior out, and the church, despite brutal persecution in the first century, flourished. And the name of Christ, the Lord, grew in that region of the world and beyond, after his death, burial, and resurrection, of course. And so the message that Charlie Kirk was sharing is going to expand now. This killer inadvertently gave a greater voice to the message Charlie Kirk was proclaiming. Now, there's only one Charlie Kirk. There's not a duplicate. There's not a twin somewhere. He was his own man. There's nobody else like him. There's nobody else like me. There's nobody else like you. He was a one-off, but his message was sound by and large, with some exceptions, as I said. And some people get their nose out of joint about Charlie Kirk because of particular things he espoused that I don't agree with either, but I have addressed this, and I'm not going to get into it again. He was still fundamentally a good man, I believe, an honest and decent man, terrific orator, terrific debater. He could hold his own with anyone, and he had an open enough mind to listen to the arguments of people who just might have been brighter than him. He entertained Orthodox clerics, for example, and he listened to what they had to say. He didn't convert, but he listened, and that's all we can ask. The point is, his message now is going to grow because the blood that he spilled in Utah that day is going to has fallen to the earth, and from that, those drops of blood that fell to the earth is going to sprout a garden of fruit that is going to produce, hopefully, a wonderful harvest. His message was basically sound. There were a few flaws in his message, but his message was basically, as far as I can tell, fundamentally sound, and I don't have a problem with that. But the lesson here is clear. If you would be a Charlie Kirk type figure, and you would be a person who presents him or herself to the people, to the masses, to deliver your message and engage with these people, you better have some backup. Because, folks, we live in a whole new world, and there's a lot of sickos out there, a lot of nutcases, a lot of people who ain't playing games, and because of the inflammatory rhetoric of people like Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi and AOC and Charles Schumer and Governor Pritzker, and on and on and on it goes, these woke leftists who project onto the right the very things that they are doing. They are the ones using the inflammatory language. And then they try and assign this to the right. They're projecting. They're the ones who are doing this. They are the ones who are flaming these passions in these nutballs that go out and carry out these heinous acts. And you've got to be prepared for that. It's as simple as that. You just can't go in there blind any longer. You've got to have a security detail, a well-stocked, well-paid, high in number security detail. People who know the lay of the land, people who are positioned on the rooftops, people who go in before the event and do a sweep, to do everything in their power to make sure something like this never happens again. And that is my message on this Friday evening. This message is not benefiting Charlie Kirk, but hopefully it will benefit future political figures. And you need to know this as well. Don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Be prepared. In this day and age, you had better be prepared. I'm prepared. If you know what I mean, are you prepared? Because this ain't Ozzie and Harriet's country anymore. We are coexisting with lunatics. And I don't care if you live in a big city, in a suburb, or out in the country, they are everywhere. They're like cockroaches. And you better be ready. You better protect yourself, and you better protect your loved ones. If you have children, you better protect them. It is just that simple. I hate to say it, but these are the times we are living in, my friends. May God have mercy on us all and protect us. Have a great weekend.